Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Tom Stewart here with Liz Trotter. This is Smart Business Moves. Right on time. We are on time.
You tell me it was not 15, even 30 seconds. It was closer to 15 on my clock over here. I'm like,
It was 5 o'clock when we went live.
yes, it was. Yes, it was. All right, y'all. So we are happy to be here doing some more KPIs. And I've been getting a lot of really good feedback about the KPIs, Tom. I haven't had a chance to talk with you. Let me just double check here. Okay.
Well, tell me, I could use some good feedback today.
Yeah, I figured that you could, so I'm glad I'm having a chance to talk with you here. So feedback I'm getting is, oh my gosh, how much people love this, and that they're appreciating having a chance to talk about it and hear about it, getting more comfortable with it. It's for two people mentioned something about it feeling less scary right now. Hey, Denise. So I thought, that's really good. How many times in the past have we had to talk with somebody about KPIs and they're so afraid they can barely talk about it and they're just maybe in tears, right? How many times have we had that?
Well, we have seen that. We have seen that before.
We have, and more than once. So I'm happy that's working out well for people.
So what makes them scary? I've heard that, but when people are telling you that it's not scary, what makes numbers scary?
So what makes it scary is I don't know how to do it. What if I'm not doing it right? What if my numbers are so bad that I'm going to find out that I'm not exactly sure of all of the things, but they all kind of start
like that makes sense. It's kind of like, going to the doctor and having some tests run and you're afraid to see what the results are going to be.
That's exactly it. The people that don't want to go to the doctor at all because they just don't want to hear the news.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to hear whatever it is they have to say. I'd rather hear nothing than take the chance of hearing bad news.
Yeah. I think it's scary. I think like spiders are scary. Sharks are scary. Numbers. Numbers don't hurt you, but
I think most people that are afraid of numbers would argue that numbers are way scarier than spiders or sharks. So please.
I don't know.
Because tracking numbers was new to me. Yeah, so brand new, Sarah says. Hi, Bridget and Leslie. Yeah, like a new language. I agree, Leslie. I think that for a lot of people is maybe not so much scary as like in Leslie's situation, maybe more intimidating. It's like, this is not, it's not simple. It is like a new language. And especially when there's somebody like you, Tom, that I think that has been talking the numbers language for so long that everything just rolls off your tongue and you think it's just so normal sounding. Like the phrase KPI, a lot of these people have never even heard the phrase KPI before we introduce it. So when you're like saying KPI, blah, 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 people are like, what were those 3 letters again? What was that? What do they stand for? What does that mean? And you're already on to a whole nother topic. So that whole new language thing is tough. It's like going to a brand new country and they're speaking to you in their language. You're just trying to pick out one word at a time. What was that? Catchy word. What?
So, it's like a new language. Okay, well, this is not my thing.
So many acronyms.
New to me. Okay. Sarah, you're not alone. We have seen that multiple times.
Yeah. We were just talking about that before you got on, Sarah. Yeah. I would say that the KPI workshop or that class has made more people cry than, by a big margin too, than any other class that we've ever done.
Yeah.
Would you? I don't even think there's.
Yeah.
I get kind of a lot of tears when I sit down with people to do their disc.
Mm-hmm.
That's
There
one.
are foundations. I mean, that's just so intense, and you're kind of like locked on. I mean, everybody's like living in the same house for a week, and I mean, there's a lot of tears.
But that sounds scarier right now with
Yeah, I
COVID.
mean, I feel like crying at times. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. See, Sarah had never heard the term KPI before foundations. See, a lot of people.
well, we got a lot of work ahead of us. So there's no sense in talking about this week's schedule because we know what we're doing tomorrow. It's KPIs. We know what we're doing. It's KPIs, and end of the week we'll share with you what we're going to be doing next week. And KPIs will be part of what we're doing next week too, because that's kind of the way we're rolling here. And right now,
I just have to tell you, every single time I see your name, I think of pizza. Anybody else? Because of Costco. The Kirkland pizza. They have the best pizza.
oh,
So every time I see your name, I'm like, ooh, pizza. Yummy.
I go there and I see those really huge pies, and I think of you, Liz.
They're delish. Yeah, you should think of me, Tom, because I could eat one of the babies all by myself. I'm with you, Sean. Yum.
Sean Day is in the house. Hey, Sean.
Hey, Sean. Good to see you. I actually see him every now and again because I always go and look at what he's offering on his page too. Oh, you wish? Yeah, I bet you do. All right, Tom.
Okay, I cleaned some stuff up here because we were talking yesterday about how this wasn't making a lot of sense, where the money kind of flows through. If you got a 55% cost of goods sold, and remember that's your loaded payroll to revenue for everything that we're talking about here, then 55 cents out of every dollar is going here to pay the people that are cleaning the homes for you. You got another 45 cents to cover your operating expenses. And you got to get enough 45 cents in off of a number of dollars to cover $25,000 in this example. And once you do that,
you know what, Tom? I feel like that the confusing part, I know that you tried really hard to fix this, but I feel like the confusing part is the $25,000, because out of $1, the operating expenses should be 25 cents, not $25,000.
well, but if I go back up here, what we need to understand is that regardless of what your revenue is, if you clean one home or 1,000 homes, if you generate, $100 in revenue or $100,000 in revenue, 55 cents out of every dollar is going to go to the people that are cleaning the homes for you.
Right. 55%. Yeah.
But if you, regardless of how many homes you clean, you got to come up with another 25 grand just to break even. If you didn't clean 0 homes, you still owe 25 grand, assuming that you're going to continue to pay your office staff and pay your rent and pay for your leases and all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So cost of goods sold is a percentage of the revenue. It's always think of cost of goods sold as a percentage of revenue. That's why we do loaded payroll to revenue as a percentage. Okay. I don't care what the dollar amount is. I never care about what the dollar amount of your payroll to revenue numbers is. Always, well, what is the percentage to revenue? That's what's important. Your operating expenses, I really don't want to hear about percentages. It matters, but that's a fixed number. I just need to know how much cash do I need to come up with to pay the rent each month and the other expenses.
So that's where you're getting me stuck though, Tom. So if you go over to your other example, if I've got a revenue of $1 and my expenses are $25,000, those numbers don't line up.
No.
So
you remember how you do the math?
No, go to your dollars. Go to your dollar bill and your coins.
Well, let me show you here.
Okay.
If I've got to come up with $25,000 to cover these fixed expenses.
Yep.
And if I know that 45 cents out of every dollar is going to go to cover those fixed expenses, I can take my 25,000 and divide it by 0.45, and that gives me 55,556. That's my break-even revenue. Okay. That's how much revenue. That's how much money my customers have to pay me that month to pay all my fixed expenses And after that, the next dollar that comes in, I get to put 45 cents in my pocket.
Okay.
You guys have seen this before. This
Yeah.
is awesome. I just, excuse me for a minute. You see, I'm paying my overhead here. I'm paying my fixed expenses. The money's, oops, I've covered my 25,000 and now it's flowing over here into profit. But that's really 45 cents and 55 cents is going here. And I can make that work too. But anyway, so why is this confusing?
Okay, so that's what I'm trying to explain to you. So let's say in this scenario, you have $1 in revenue.
Yeah.
And 55%, because we're talking about percentage, is going to cost of goods sold.
Mm-hmm.
But your expenses are $25,000.
For the month.
Yes, $25,000. But I only am getting $1 for the month. Because this looks like I'm getting $1 in revenue, like you're simplifying. The top looks like you're simplifying it. So for an easy example, if you got $1 in revenue and then 55% of that went out in COGS, that would be illustrated by 55 coins, 55 cents.
Are you reading this as saying that with this $1, I'm paying all of my operating expenses?
Right, because you have all these coins. What does the 55 cents in coins stand for?
I'm gonna think of this as a bucket that needs $25,000 in it.
Mm-hmm.
The first dollar that comes in is contributing 45 cents to that $25,000.
Okay, so
the intent is not to imply that I can cover my operating expenses with $1. It's saying out of the dollar, 55 cents is always going to be going over here to COGS.
Okay.
And out of every dollar, I'm throwing, think of it, if I got this bucket in my office, that by the end of the month, I need to have $25,000 in it. For every dollar that's coming in, I'm able to throw 45 cents in it. I'm not there yet with the first dollar. I've got to come up with another $24,000.55, but I'm 45 cents closer with every dollar I get. And as soon as my bucket gets $25,000 in it, like this, then I don't have to put any more 45 cents in this bucket. The 45 cents out of every dollar from this point forward goes into net profit for the balance of the month. Does that not make sense?
no, it does. I'm telling you the conversation that I've had with multiple people. So I'm thinking that there's something wrong with the diagram. Without having this long conversation, what it looks like is we've got a dollar in revenue, 55 cents goes to COGS, and then we've got 45 cents left over. You see what I'm saying? Can you understand this other side of what people are seeing?
I'm blind. I don't know. This makes so much sense to me. I can't see past it.
Yeah,
Can you draw me another picture maybe, and we can, because we're taking, we need to probably push on. We got some people saying it. They think it's making more sense.
Yeah, it absolutely does make sense, but it takes a lot of explanation to make it make sense. The image itself is not clear. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is a great question. Go ahead and explain why it doesn't, Tom. One more time, TJ, we're going to explain why it doesn't make sense as a percentage.
Okay.
Nope, Sarah, you're doing exactly the same thing that everybody's trying to do. So if you look over here, Sarah's saying the same thing, Tom, even after the discussion. So this is why I'm saying that the image isn't working for us.
Okay. I'll accept that, but I'm going to need your guys' help because this is really important to me. Before this journey is done, we're going to have an awesome picture that you're going to look at it and say, heck yeah, that's obvious. Yeah. We're not the obvious yet.
So Leslie is giving us a suggestion, Tom. So adding the term, writing somewhere towards the $25,000 bucket, so that the $1 is going toward the bucket. Everything's going toward there, because once you exceed the ops expenses, there's more profit. So it wouldn't be a percentage. Once you exceed the operations budget, and add a bucket image, maybe adding the bucket image would help as well. Thank you, Leslie. This is all helpful. So Tom, here's the situation that you're running into. So you can see from the other side too. You've been speaking this language for so long that you can't understand why the person from another country can't get this sentence.
For God's sake. What?
It's so obvious. This is how you say it. Do you know any other languages, Tom? Like Spanish, French, anything?
My experience with Spanish was not a glowing success. No. Yeah. The practical answer to your question is no.
Okay. Well, we want to get moving on to KPIs, so we can talk about the rest of this later. But go ahead and explain this again in a different way, Tom, so people can.
Okay.
Because this is really, really important, you guys.
From a P&L standpoint.
Heather also has a question, Tom. If you can. Heather Baker also has a question that is going on here.
Heather Baker. Hello, Heather. You know who Heather is, Liz?
I don't.
Heather's a dear friend of mine.
But
You're familiar with this software package called Made Central?
I am.
Before it was Made Central, it was Castle Quick.
Familiar with that too.
Before it was Castle Quick, it was OmniMade.
Oh, wow. Never heard that.
It was probably either a couple other names out there. And the Castle, the Made Central that we know now, Heather built that program for like the first 15, maybe 20 years. Heather and I worked together we go way back. Heather, I mean, I digress, but I want to give Heather some props here. She lives in Morganton, North Carolina. She runs a really successful dog daycare business, and she's rocking it. But she told me, she hit me up on Facebook and says, hey, I'm appreciating the number stuff, and she's using it in her doggy daycare business.
Nice.
She's also an awesome computer programmer. She writes code, and she built a lot of the early versions of Made Central before it was Made Central. So I'm sorry, I digress, but it's cool.
Thanks for your contribution, Heather. We all appreciate it.
Okay. This is a P&L, a very simple version, and it's like 5 parts to it. The first part is revenue. That's the money that your customers are paying you, right? So what are you going to do with all that money that they're going to pay you? The first thing that you're going to do is pay the people that did the cleaning for you, that did the work. That's a variable cost. And what I mean by variable cost is if you clean one more home, it's going to cost you something more to do that.
Yep.
So, and the biggest cost out of everything that's variable would be the salaries and the labor load, which we talked about yesterday, the insurance and the taxes and all that associated with that. Every time you clean one more home, you're going to have more payroll. You got to pay people to do that. So those cost of goods sold is going to go up. So you think about that as a percent to revenue. For every dollar you generate in this example of revenue, you're going to be paying 55 cents to cover that. After you pay that 55 cents, you see here, you got this thing called gross profit. And from an accounting standpoint, gross profit is simply revenue minus cost of goods sold. And in our world, think of it as revenue minus your loaded payroll. Okay? That gives you gross profit. And this is money. When you got gross profit, this is what's left over from a job after you paid your people. So if you pay commission, then you can basically, I mean, there's a lot of things that can make your loaded payroll higher than whatever your commission rates is, because training typically will bump that up. That's one of the largest contributors to your payroll going up, above commission, and efficiency and overtime. There's several things that do that. But you pay commission, be thinking about it that way, that, well, I'm giving a percentage to the people that are cleaning and I get to keep the rest of it. But you really don't get to keep the rest of it. You got to take the rest of it and pay all the other bills. And once you're done with that, then you get to keep the rest of it. All the other bills in this example is the operating expense. In this example, it's $25,000. So you don't really need to be thinking about it. I mean, you can do the percentage and say it's 25%, but if you generate $100 in revenue under this model, you've got to pay $55 to take care of your cleaners, and you're done. That's all you got to pay. under this model, if you generate $100 in revenue, you've got $45 to go against this $25,000, but you got to come up with the whole $25,000 because that's your rent, that's your other insurance, that's your leases, that's your marketing, that's covering your office staff. You got to pay those people and you got to pay those bills, whether you're cleaning or not.
Check out what Sarah says, Tom. I think she says that in a nice, simple way.
So the operating expense can't be percentage because it changes with revenue fluctuations.
Yeah.
Well, the operating expenses really don't change much with the revenue fluctuations. Does your rent's pretty much the same regardless?
No, but the percentage as a
percentage
revenue, it totally
the
changes.
percentage changes. Yeah.
Yeah,
That just confuses the picture, I guess. What I'm trying to get us to get beyond is when we're trying to figure out how much money we're making, you need to think of it as a set amount. Now, there is some benefit of working backwards and saying in this model, this operating expense is 25% of revenue. And there's this thing called benchmarking that we'll get to a little later on down the road, where it's useful to compare your cleaning business to everybody else's cleaning business on this call and say, what is your payroll to revenue? My payroll to revenue is, 52%. Mine's 48. Well, how come you got 48% and I got 52? I want 48%. What are you doing differently than I'm doing? And that's how, that's part of continuous improvement. And the same on the operating expense side. If my operating expense to revenue is 30% and on average, and yours is 25%. It's like, well, gee, how can you do it, for less than me? And it's worth having those discussions. But in terms of really managing profit, because the whole point of this is to figure out how to create more profit every month, you're going to be, the thing that's most useful to you is to think of the operating expense as just, as Leslie said, you got a bucket that you need to put $25,000 in this example to cover the operating expense before you put $1 in your pocket. We talk about profit first in that whole theory, and it's a practice, and I think it's a wonderful program, and it's useful to a whole lot of people, and it's helped, a lot of people make a lot of money doing it. But you can talk about that, but legally, if you got people working in your office, you got to pay them before you can put money in your pocket. You got to pay your rent or you're going to be on the street. So you can say profit first, but you can't tell the bank if you owe them money, I'm sorry, I'm not going to pay you because I'm doing profit first and I got to pay. It doesn't work that way. You got to fill that bucket up before you can start making money.
So I think I have another thing that I could say, Tom, that might help you to get to where people are getting stuck. It just looks like you're talking about apples and oranges at the same time. And let me give it to you in a different way. Total operating expenses are fixed. That's what you have in that column, fixed. But where under total cost of goods sold and gross profit and net profit, you talk about percentages. But wouldn't total cost of goods sold, if you were talking the same language, wouldn't you say something like flexible under total cost of goods sold, or changing, or
variable is the
variable, right? So wouldn't you use one of those other terms? And because you're not, and you're only using fixed in the one area, it's like apples and oranges together. So it's just confusing the bucket.
Okay, so if I did something like
maybe a third column,
I could do that. I don't know if I'm that talented to do that on the fly, but if I put something up here and go on, behave, I'm going to have to start using profanity here.
Tom, didn't we just say that was not a good thing to do? Come on now.
We did.
Just had that conversation.
Think about this. Think about this, Liz. We've been doing this for 9-10 months now.
Yep.
What's the worst? I mean, I've been pretty good, right?
You have been very good, Tom. Very, very good.
Heather's on this call. She knows. She knows.
I think everybody that's been to Foundations has heard you drop at least one little. Usually, your favorite word is, I think, the B word. That's the one I hear you drop more than anything else.
Well, that doesn't even count. That's not even on most people's list.
I laugh every single time.
Okay, so yeah, we can rework this and make so, because when we talk about like the variable, payroll cost, we talk about cost of goods sold. That's synonymous with your variable cost, and the operating expenses, that's synonymous with your fixed cost. So fixed cost, variable cost is kind of goes hand in hand.
That might make it a little bit easier is if we didn't have such even numbers, because the even numbers make your brain do things, especially people who are good with numbers but not understanding this language. So like a lot of people, their brains are automatically going to think 25%. Where if the numbers, like if the total cost of goods sold was $51,000 or $51,500, then we brought down gross profit and then brought down total operating expense.
When I'm putting these exhibits together, if I do the even numbers, I don't need a calculator. Now you're making it hard.
So remember that in what looks easy to you looks hard to other people because you understand this. So it's I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it's tough. Anyway, we got to move on because here we are at 2:27 or 5:27 for y'all.
There was one thing that we talked about yesterday that we were going to do, and I want to share that. We talked about. I'm going to do a couple things here. Let me. We were talking about the red numbers and the green numbers yesterday, and everything that we've been doing over the last couple of days is focusing on this loaded direct payroll to revenue, and we can improve that number. We want that number to go down, and we can do that by making the loaded direct payroll, the number on top, go down, or make the revenue go up. But how does this fit into the bigger picture of all the KPIs that we're dealing with? Because we've shown this model before, and talk about growth and what your revenue and your profit's going to be in months and years ahead as you make the green numbers go up. And intuitively, this makes sense, right? If I can get more money per job, all things else being equal, I'm going to be more profitable, right? I'm going to have more. I'm going to be more profitable. Intuitively, if I just get more quotes per week, everything else is the same.
That's the word, Tom. Just. Like, even if you just moved this one number, you're going to be more profitable. Yeah. If you just move the one above it, more profitable.
You can take any one of these numbers, and if it's green, make it get bigger, and if it's red, make it get smaller.
Yeah.
Everything, and if everything else stays the same, all the other numbers stay the same, you're going to have more money in the bank.
Yeah, I think that's the key piece for people to understand, that you don't have to do all of this, you guys. Find the area that your number is not as good as you want it to be, which Tom's going to give some benchmarks on some of this stuff, and start focusing on that one number and either make it go up or make it go down, depending on whether it's a red number or a green number.
So everything that we've been talking about here over the last couple of days in terms of that cost of goods sold, and remember, our proxy for that is payroll to revenue. Loaded payroll to revenue. This is an older exhibit. I can change the title on this, but it's all right here, okay? Everything we've been talking about the last couple of days is just this one number. In this example, it says 55%, which matches our other exhibit.
So, Tom, I think that this would be helpful here, too, if you explain, why did you start here? Why did you start with direct payroll percent to revenue?
Because I'm going to go back here to this model. It's confusing everybody, but we'll keep working on this until we get, I've got other examples with buckets and stuff. I can dig them up, and maybe I'll do some mix and match, some older presentations. Yeah. We'll get something and maybe change the numbers up a little bit. If I want to be more profitable, our initial inclination is to look at all the things that we're buying, because when you look at a P&L, And I'm going to show you one right here. And I'm going to show you a trick on how to figure out how profitable, how to get your payroll to revenue off of a P&L.
Awesome.
But when you start looking at your P&L, you're going to get lost in all these details. You're going to be looking at all these accounts and trying to figure out where's all the money going and where can I cut. It's like, my gosh, I paid, $75 last month for window cleaner and maybe, or cleaning supplies, maybe, if I shopped around a little bit, I can get that for $60. And it's the whole Willie Sutton thing. Why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money is. There's no money in most of this stuff down here. All the money is up here with our cost of goods sold. If you can see this is kind of small. And out of the cost of goods sold, the real thing is your total labor cost. In this example, there's
What do you mean by the real thing, Tom?
I'm sorry?
What do you mean by the real thing?
I'm sorry, the what thing?
You said the real thing. Out of total,
the real money is here. The real out of all of these,
the bulk
cost of goods sold down here with the COGS, if you will. This is a real example from a real company, and you see how much of it is all tied up in the direct labor. If I'll insert a column here, a row here, and I'm going to call this loaded payroll divided by COGS, right?
Can you scroll up a little, Tom? You're under the post from Sarah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm going to move your post.
Oh, there we go. Good job, Linda. Congratulations.
Our business moves. Our current change agent. We're gonna celebrate something here. Hey, thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah, that is good.
I mean,
Really good.
It's fun doing this, but to actually, get feedback that, folks are able to take this and do something with it.
We're making money.
Making money and creating value. And because of that, we're able to create better jobs. We're able to provide better service. We're able to build more value in our business. This is awesome. Okay. So in this example, bing, bing, I'm going across here.
All of that he's doing right now, you guys, and don't worry about how he's doing all of this. Just follow along with what he's going to show you. Don't worry about, but how do you get that? How do you create that in the spreadsheet? That's not important right now.
This is an export. This spreadsheet was exported out of QuickBooks Online. The QuickBooks desktop version will do it too. And you run the payroll, and there's a little option up there that will allow you to pick, is it total only, or are you going to be doing it by month? Do you want to do it by the year? Do you want to do it by week? And you do a little drop down that says, I want to do it by week. And I did it for like an entire year by week, and it gives you the P&L week by week by week. So if you look here, like chemicals and supplies, there's some weeks where we don't have any expense there because we're not buying chemicals every week, right? I mean, you buy them and you use them for a few weeks. So some weeks it's zero, but if I go all the way over here and the total for the entire year is here, I've got cost of goods sold of $341 and change. I've got a total direct labor cost, and the total includes my workers' comp, my payroll taxes, all the labor load stuff that we were talking about yesterday. That brings me up to 334. So 334 divided by 341 is 98%. So the reason I say your accountant's going to say cost of goods sold, if you want to bust your butt counting, doing all the extra accounting you need to do to find that extra 2%, have at it. But I'm
going to simplify that, Tom. I'm going to break that down to easy layman's terms here. what he's saying is the reason why he started with the payroll percent to revenue is because the majority of your expenses are in that category. So he's going to help us figure out how we can reduce that expense. And the biggest portion of that, of the COGS, right, is the direct labor, which is the money that you pay to your team members, your cleaning professionals. So how we can make that number better, right? Red going down, how we can get that number to go down is going to be the secret sauce. All that other stuff that you're doing, it's what Tom would call playing air guitar, right? You pay less for your supplies, you pay less on your rent, you pay less on all of your other stuff. You're not impacting the number in a big enough way to make a big difference. Dealing with your direct labor, your payroll percent to revenue, that's how you make the big changes. That's why he starts there.
So I am going to go up here and I'm going to insert a column right under the total direct labor cost. So this has got my direct labor and it's got all the other labor load and stuff in it to get me the total number, okay? You notice up here, total direct payroll, right?
Yep.
So this has, Molly wants to say hi.
Hi, Molly. And well, so does my little naked lion.
It'll grow back. It will grow back.
Yeah. Okay.
Notice how this works. You got a commission of like $3,280, and this is, well, I don't even know what the week is. Let's go here. I got almost $4,200 the second week of January. I'm going to go up here. If this is the payroll for this week, what week generated that revenue? It would be the week before, right?
I think so.
I clean homes this week.
Well, it depends. If you got the money on the same time, wouldn't it go in the same day?
Yeah. Here's the part that's a bit goofy on this. This is the beginning of the year. So this is January 1 through 5. So this is literally the beginning of the year, but this isn't a full week. This is only 5 days. So I'm going to skip over that. I'm going to go over here. The second week in January, it was the revenue was $13,558. On the commission side, it is 5,822.
You jumped a column.
Because the homes I clean this week, when Friday comes, I'm not going to pay. I'm paying. You know, the pay that here is for the homes we cleaned the week prior. The paychecks that go out on the 18th of January, and I'm saying that because for this company, the work week goes from Sunday to Saturday.
Yeah. And
I believe that that's really the best way to do it. Some people start their work week on a Monday. If you started on a Sunday, there's some pretty cool things you can do with overtime to sometimes help you a little bit, but that's a discussion for another day. But so if Saturday is the 19th, 18th is a Friday. So the checks that go out on Friday, the 18th was for the jobs that were cleaned on the 6th through the 12th.
So that just means those two numbers connect. The revenue money that was brought in the 6th through the 12th connects up with the money that was paid out on the next payday, if you pay weekly, right? Depending on how you pay.
If you pay weekly, that's the way it works. So that's what this model is. In accounting, they call that the matching principle. So when you're comparing like income and expenses, you want to make sure that the expenses are matching up with the income that it helped generate.
Yes. Yes, Robin. That's a nice, simple way of stating that as well. Also, I just want to say real quick, all the people that are in the MMA group or the different groups, this is part of why we want you to track this daily so that you can see that connection really, really easily. Like, this is how much I brought in. This is how much went out. Oh, so that you can start to get a really good, strong understanding of how those numbers compare to each other.
So We're gonna play a game here. Just up here, I'm just gonna take this commission number, just the commission number, and divide it against the revenue.
Wow, this is a fun game, Tom.
Well, indulge me. That's 43%.
All right.
Just for straight commission, it depends. It depends on, what your bill rate is on an average bill rate. It depends on what your target hourly rate is. It depends on what your efficiency is. 43% is reasonable in terms of just a straight commission rate. But that's not the full story, because you've got training.
Hold on. For those of you that are always wanting some benchmark, just give me anything. You heard Tom just say right there that for commission pay, 43% is reasonable. It's not the best, it's not the worst, but reasonable. So you're in the ballpark here. All right.
Yeah. But you need to add to that some overtime that was paid. You need to add to that some training pay. So my total just gross payroll was 6,137. I'm just curious. I want to see what this is. So I'm going to take that and divide it by. I'm sorry, Liz?
We're going to play that fun game again, Tom.
Okay, so that goes up to 45%. That's still not bad.
Where is it? Where does it go from okay to not good, Tom? Is there a number?
It depends on your business model.
Okay.
If you've got a brick and mortar company cars where that operating expense, that fixed expense, that bucket that you need to throw the 45 cents into, if that's a big bucket, you need to have that percentage, below 50%, or you're going to be cleaning a ton of homes to fill that bucket before you actually get anything that looks like net profit. If you got a low overhead business where you don't have an office, you got solo cleaners that are driving their own cars, then you can actually have a higher cost of goods sold, a higher loaded payroll to revenue to kind of compensate for like the extra expectations and costs that you have associated with your cleaning professionals, and still be profitable, because the bucket with your operating costs really isn't as big, and you don't have to put as much money in it before you're profitable.
All right. So Tom is explaining to you guys why you have to understand the concept, because there is no exact answer. So for a standard brick and mortar company, like Tom was talking about, 43%, 45%, 47%. Of course, we want that number to be as low as possible. If you could get it down to 38%, wouldn't that be awesome? It's a red number, right? So we would definitely want that lower. But there is no exact answer, which is why you have to know what your operating expenses are and why you have to understand how the money moves throughout your company. Oh, he's going to play another game, you guys. You see, another Tom game. Add a row.
Oh. So this is the loaded COGS. Up here, we're going to do just the payroll, because this is really what we want to be tracking every week. The revenue. Actually, I said this wrong. This is COGS divided by revenue. Sorry.
We know what you meant.
So your cost of goods sold divided by revenue. No, I'm sorry. I had it right to begin with, because I took one by the other. I am confusing myself. Forgive me.
So I feel really confused right now, Tom. What are we doing?
Okay.
What are we trying to figure out?
Here we demonstrated that your loaded direct payroll is almost all of your COGS. That was what we were doing here.
Yep. It's 100% in that case.
This is the thing. This is really the whole point of this. And this is what I want to show everybody how to do. And you can do this on a weekly basis. You need to know what your loaded direct payroll to COGS is. Okay. And there's several different ways you could do it, but you can get these numbers out of QuickBooks every week if you do a weekly payroll. If you do a bi-weekly payroll every other week, then you need to do this every other week. Every time you do a payroll, every time you have a payday, you want to go through the exercise of figuring how much revenue did I generate out of the payroll that I just spent.
Same time frame. That's what that.
Same time frame. You got to do the matching principle to the people who, for the salary went to the people who clean the homes. Do not include your office staff. Do not include, any pay that you take. Only the pay that goes to the people that are cleaning homes.
Okay. And remember, that's because we are just tracking that direct labor, those fixed costs, because the variable costs, because your office labor goes down below the line. That's why your office labor aren't included. He's talking about just your people out in the field, because that's a variable number. It changes every time you clean a house. You don't pay more money to your office people every time you clean a house, right? Oh, we're cleaning Mrs. Jones. Darn, I'm going to have to pay person in the office more money. Nope, fixed. That's why they're down below the line.
So
I think I might have messed people up saying below the line. Sorry.
You're okay.
We're good.
Okay. We're not air traffic control here. We aren't landing airplanes. It's all good.
Good call, Tom.
I am going to take the total, direct labor cost, which includes my labor load, and I am going to divide it by the revenue that it generated for that week, and it comes out to be, it says dollar, but that's really a percentage, 52%. So in this example for this week, 52 cents out of every dollar went to cover the people that were cleaning the homes, and I had 48 cents left over to cover other expenses, to cover the operating expenses. And once they're covered, then we've got some profit.
So is it kind of like that thing that you always hear about, Tom, where people will say something like, on September 15th, they'll say, yay, I'm finally making money. All of my tax debt is paid. But you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. If, you can figure out, pretty much what percentage of your personal income goes to everything from sales tax to state tax to federal tax, and goodness knows.
Sorry, Molly. Sorry. Like, no taxes. Stop taxes.
I am sorry. Molly, come here.
You can't blame her, Tom. Nobody wants to pay taxes.
Yeah, she doesn't like that. And, it can be 30, 40% or more of some people's income. If you live in some states where you've got to pay, you hear this thing about SALT tax, state and local taxes, and that used to be tax deductible. It isn't anymore. I mean, I used to live in New Jersey, and I used to work in New York City, and it was crazy. I was paying taxes to everybody. And, if you're paying 40% of your taxes or your income to taxes, you do the math, out of 12 months, how many months does it take to even get to the point where, you're covering that? You might have to work 5 months just to get to the point where you're actually making money for yourself. That's that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So
in this example, it's 52%.
I'm just gonna do a little quick temperature check here. How's everybody doing? Are we thumbs up, thumbs down? Are we getting it? Everybody feels like, yes, I'm getting it. This is all making sense. Or I'm still a little lost. It's a little confusing. I know that a lot of times when we're talking about a lot of different things all at the same time, that they can start to get mushed together and get kind of combined, especially when we're talking in a different language. Starlene's good. We got a thumbs up here. Good. Bridget's good too. Yay. Anybody not feeling good here, so that we can dive in a little bit more? So bottom line is, the reason why we're working on the red number, we're talking about the red number that needs to go down, yay, Linda, thumbs up, is because exactly what Robin said, the LDPR are the highest costs, and the cost that can be managed monthly to improve your business profitability. Actually, they can even be improved daily, weekly, right? You can find out what that number is, and tomorrow you can make some changes that can lower that number. So you don't even have to wait an entire month, which is awesome. But their fixed expenses a lot of times take a lot longer to change.
Yeah, if you're locked into a lease, if you're locked into rent, if you're a lot of things you're kind of locked into, and
Utilities.
yeah, you can and the hardest thing to manage. Think about this. I mean, this makes a lot of sense. What's the hardest thing for you to manage? Is it easier to manage, how much you're spending on utilities? I mean, you can cut the thermostat down, you can turn the lights off when you're not in the room. There's things you can do. It moves the needle a little bit, but it's a lot less risky. It's a lot less stressful. Managing your payroll costs on your direct labor side actually gets to the point where you're having to train, you're having to coach, you're having to create accountability. Basically, you have to do it through other people. I mean, you're basically having to create an environment where people are being more productive, they're being more proficient, they're actually cleaning more homes per hour. There's a lot you can do, in other parts of the business, and we've got long lists of that we're going to get back to in our deck. But it's stressful because you're having to modify and lead people's behavior and get them to behave in ways to help, get that cost under control and be more profitable. So it's the kind of thing that, we go to all the other easy places first before we resign ourselves to the fact that the hard place is where the money is.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I feel like everybody has it. Everybody's giving us a thumbs up. The people that haven't are giving correct comments that match. So I think we're good, Tom.
I'm going to give you one more thing, and this is important. That if you have in QuickBooks, you want to set your chart of accounts up where your variable cost is separated from your fixed cost. Your cost of goods sold is separated from your operating expense. If you see here, we've got direct payroll. So these dollars are showing up here, the dollars that go to the people that are cleaning homes. If I go down here somewhere, there should be payroll expense, indirect payroll, salary. In this case, it looks like it was constantly $600 a week in salary. So I guess there was like one person working in the office here that's making $600 a week. The office person is not up here in cost of goods sold. It's down here in expenses. So we're separating those two payrolls in QuickBooks. And if you have your QuickBooks set up right, and there's we can help you with that. I guess does Megan do this type of stuff?
Megan does. If you take Megan's course, she teaches you how to set your chart of accounts up correctly. Also, it's a great course just for anybody that hasn't taken it and is like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to understand this stuff. It's a great course.
If you do that week in and week out, it can be a little bit tricky to know what your general liability, expenses are in your payroll, because you're not actually paying well, you might. It depends how you do your payroll. Some payroll service providers will charge you weekly for that. But for most people, it doesn't work out this way. So you have to have a bookkeeper that does all this math for you. And this company looks like it has a pretty good bookkeeper. So you may or may not have those numbers, but you're going to have the gross pay that you're paying your cleaners. You're going to have that every week. And you should be able to take that number, and then you can just add a percentage to make it loaded. And let me show you how that works. I took this labor load number right here. This is the insurance and taxes. This is the row that has all of the additional labor load that we talked about over the last couple of days.
Yep.
I'm dividing it by the direct payroll for that week, and it comes out to be 16%. What happens if I drag it over here? 16%. What happens if I drag it over here?
So a lot of people have no idea what you're doing. Wait, a lot of people aren't familiar with spreadsheets.
Oh,
What you mean
okay,
by
so I'm taking the number from the next week, the labor load from this particular week and dividing it by the revenue, and the labor load from this week and dividing it by the revenue.
All right. So all he's doing, you guys, is when he's dragging, he's copying that formula. He's saying, hey, in this column, do this. And he's just copying that over to the next column, saying, and do the same thing in this column, and do the same thing in this column. Figure out the same number. So that's what he's doing there.
You see what's happening? It's around 16. It was a little bit higher, 17. So it's varying a little bit week to week. I don't know what it's doing that, but if it were me and I'm doing this, I want to do this every week. The quickest thing to do is just find out from your payroll service provider, what was my gross payroll to my direct labor that week? And they're going to give you a number. $6,173, and I'm going to add an extra 16% to that, or 16.5%, and that's good enough, and that will get me a number that I can say that's my loaded payroll for that week, and that's what I divide by the revenue that I generated the previous week, and I can do that like just on the back of a napkin every week, and I know what my payroll to revenue is.
Do y'all feel like you could just do that on the back of a napkin every week like that? Give me a thumbs up if you think you can.
Come on, give me a thumb. Give me a thumb. And if you don't, we can drill down. This is, I felt like based on some feedback yesterday, we wanted to play with some numbers a little bit. So I wanted to.
LOLs, not thumbs ups, Tom.
Okay. Well, that could be laughing with a thumb up. No.
So, Tom, it's just that numbers are so familiar for you. When you just said that long string, you used like 5 acronyms all at the same time, along with the back of a napkin. So it's like, whoa, what happened right there? What are we talking about?
Speaking of language, I'm sorry.
I think if you said it slower, that people would agree that absolutely they have the understanding to be able to figure this out and to be able to write it down. It's not hard. But it still takes a little bit of brain power for the people that's not first language, right? Only been studying this language for a few weeks now. We can't just all of a sudden start having like fluent conversations.
Going to payroll and finding your loaded direct labor cost week after week is something that most companies might not be able to do. But you should be, through one mechanism or another, be able to come up with just your gross pay for your direct labor.
Yep.
And you should be able to come up with, based on, what you pay for workers' comp, what you pay remember, we pay workers' comp and GL and, our Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all of that's a percentage of the payroll. So you just bump up your gross pay by that percentage and think of that as a fixed number every week. And it'll give you a pretty doggone close estimate as what your loaded payroll was for that week.
All right. So for those of you that want a little bit simpler, look at this right here, this P&L that we're looking at, or chart of accounts that we're looking at right here. And on the left-hand side, where it says insurance and tax costs, general liability, payroll taxes, and workers' comp. So those are like the 3 basic things that you need to break down, because usually you're paying this stuff by the year, right? A lot of us are paying this stuff by the year, not all of it, but a lot of it. Anything that you're not paying by the year, great. Take it by the month and get that number. Then if you have something that you're paying by the year, like your general liability, maybe you're paying, for easy numbers, $12,000 a year. So just break that down. $1,000 of that is going per month, just having that number as your go-to number, because you're just trying to figure out this percentage. So let's say you have $1,000 in general liability for the month. What were your payroll taxes for the month? That is part of the report that you get from your provider, or if you're doing it yourself, you know what that number is. So get that number. Not the percentage, the actual number, add it to your general liability number, then also your workers' comp money for the month, depending on how you pay it, if you pay it quarterly, monthly, however, get the monthly amount, add that to it, and then take that total number. And that's the number that is the percentage that Tom's figuring out here when he's got the 15.81%. What percentage is that? And then just use that every single time. Just take your direct payroll, easy to figure, right? And then add that percentage to it every single time. And that's the number that you can use for your total. You want that loaded payroll number.
You realize we're at the top of the hour, Liz?
Ah, crap. We're over.
Oh, Liz.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I'm swearing now. I apologize.
Okay. Well, the good news is we'll be back tomorrow at 5 o'clock Eastern, and we'll pick up on this discussion again with the point of we're just looking at payroll to revenue. We're looking at just one number here off of our red number, green number, but it's really important number. We're going to be talking about, the things that we can do to make this number go lower.
Sure we are.
I promise.
Tomorrow, you guys. I promise. We're going to talk about that more. We're going to have some lists.
Yep. So if this was useful, let us know. If we lost you, let us know. Ask us questions in the chat. Hit us up. Like they say at the comedy club. We'll be here all week, right?
Yeah.
You guys take care. We'll see you tomorrow at 5. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.